How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a review. So this week's episode was Once Upon a Time. It's chapter 3 in the Doctor Who series 13 Flux story. And we're going to have a deep dive into what I thought was good, bad, give it a rating and see how I feel about this episode. So one thing I didn't like with this episode, well, not really didn't like, it just wasn't a thing which I was fond of, was that the story kept flipping and it did get a little bit confusing to follow sometimes, but upon a second watch and a third watch I actually really enjoyed it. With the Doctor basically having this power of super speed, it does kind of make sense where Jon Pertwee's Doctor had all these amazing talents, the able to have the fighting, the ability to make things out of nothing and much more. So it just does make sense that the Doctor has retained this knowledge and decides to use it again. Another thing that I really did enjoy is that it followed on directly from the last episode. Now, this was one of my pet peeves, as I said in last week's video, because it didn't follow along perfectly and it just felt disconnected and discombobulated, where this one feels like it's part of the same story. It leads on perfectly. And I just love how this story goes. I also love the fact that we see Dan meeting his friend, which he always wanted to meet, but he didn't actually get to meet. And the story of basically him wanting to be in love with her. We got Yaz being back, being the policewoman that she was. And I've got to admit, Jodie Whittaker looked good as a police officer as well. And I do think that would work. And everything going on with that story there, I enjoyed. But the one thing which I really did love was Vinder. Now, obviously, the story when it started off with Belle, it didn't make sense to start off with until basically the closing scenes where Vinder's message was being sent to Belle and she was there in front. And Vinder eventually returned home and had the direct lines from the Doctor. I did like that, especially with the Dalek sector. The Daleks did look terrible with the CGI. Like, even the animated series on YouTube did a better CGI job than the BBC did. But it was bearable, I guess. The Cybermen sector, the idea of the Weeping Angels being in all of the time, I enjoyed that as well. It just was a great story. But Vinder's story of him saying, please don't make me relive this, because he was doing what was right and what put him in that position and made him miss the love of his life. I do really like that, because it shows that Vinder's got an emotional scar of that memory and everyone was living happy memories and Vinder had to live this sad, depressing thing which is so prominent in his life. It just really, really was a good idea of children, so it doesn't show that everything is happy for everybody. And he's also done that in episode 1 with Dan as well. So it is going to be more of an emotional series, I believe. And another thing which I really, really did enjoy was that we saw Jo Martin's Doctor again. And basically it showed that the Doctor in the past or the future, because the planet was called Time, but she's saying it's something from my past and we had to do it and it worked and we got to redo it basically without putting too much of the story out there. I know I'm spoiling a lot of things, but yeah, it really was fun to watch and I really did enjoy it. And discovering more of Jo Martin's Doctor just makes sense, and discovering Jodie's past after the last series bombshell. And I know a lot of people do not like The Timeless Child, but in this aspect it does kind of make it more fun. And another thing which I saw and I liked was Dan was the Kasavan in it. So Dan was portraying the Kasavan and they really did it. So Dan doesn't like him and it was established in the last episode, but it showed that they were going to be friends, employed it. And then Dan playing as the Kasavan, it just, the little details are good. Chibnall, this series is actually good and it's working well. And the whole storyline of trying to figure out where they were, was fun. They closed off a bit about the last episode where I can't remember the Ravagers. It wasn't Swarm, it was the other one. She managed to capture that friend that Dan was meant to meet, and she was shown in the prisoner. I like the idea of the prisoner basically being able to carry people. It reminded me a lot of the leather creature in series 3 episode 1. It was the same type of vibe to me, just muscle to be there and to carry things if needed. I did enjoy that, and it makes a lot of sense in my opinion for basically Swarm to have these. And I like how it went back to the past and it showed John Martin defeating Swarm, because basically what he was doing was clearly wrong and he was trying to destroy time, and he had another go at doing it, which explains why there was the psychic link being reopened with the Doctor. And just all of this was a great idea, and it really does follow perfectly from the last episode, and I just love this. And the episode was good, but the thing at the end, the cliffhanger again, with the Weeping Angel being in the TARDIS from Yaz's phone, because we all know a picture of an angel becomes an angel, and from series 5 the picture of the angel could actually come from the TV out. It shades back to that. I believe it was series 5, might have been series 6 actually, but I really did enjoy that as well. And everything just made sense in this episode and did go back over the New Who history and revisit a lot of things, not directly, but there were links, and I did enjoy that. This episode is good. I hope it links into the next episode. I really do, because that cliffhanger just needs to be picked up on virtually directly like the last one. And I enjoy what is actually happening with Doctor Who at the minute. So the bad things were the CGI on the Daleks. The Cybermen, they looked amazing. The Weeping Angels, I don't like the redesign of the crack in the face. There's no need for it really. If it had been a crack like the series 5 crack, I could have seen a bit more of understanding, because that crack represented something being wrong with time, and obviously the flux is the universe destroying and time is being disrupted. So a crack like that from series 5 would have made perfect sense, but just the crack across the face, I do not like this redesign from what we've seen. But other than that, it is quite nice, it is quite good. I like the idea that they've kept with continuing that the TARDIS doors don't make any sense. I mean, obviously there's been a few bits where it doesn't make sense, like Vinder pushes the door but then he's pulling the door in the TARDIS, and all sorts of things like that, and he pushed it fully open, but then when he gets back out the door's right in front of him. It's clearly that he's opening the front of the box on site, and then on the TARDIS set he's just opening it again, and it just, little things like that do kind of ruin the story. If it was more planned out it would have been better, but obviously the little things aren't important. It's the big things that we need to focus on. The fact that we've got the Daleks back, we've got the Cybermen back, we've got the Weeping Angels back, we've got Sontarans back, we've got new villains to face, we've got Swarm in there again, just wreaking havoc with time. We've got Joel Martin's Doctor back, we had the Kassafa back. Everything made sense. Everything was good. This episode, even though it could be seen as confusing and a little bit boring, but I really enjoyed it, so I'm going to give it more of like a 7 out of 10, because it wasn't as entertaining as last week's in my opinion, but it was still good. Like, do not take that away from me, it just wasn't as good as last week's. So this week's episode gets a 7 out of 10, so it's ranking slightly below last week's episode, but it is still a good episode obviously. But that is it for me this week. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next week for some more Doctor Who content.